Hello, welcome to a brief Cor Deo online video, just a little snapshot of John's Gospel. I just want to give us a really quick overview of this fascinating document that declares to us the deity of Christ all the way through. It's presenting Jesus in the best terms possible. And I wonder if you were going to write a gospel, you can't, but if you're going to, and you were going to put three testimonies in the gospel, you'd probably pick Peter, James, and John, right? They would probably be the three, or maybe John the Baptist, something like that. But the way that John wrote his gospel, he's given us three unlikely candidates. So let's just take a look and see what we have. John's gospel is 21 chapters long. It divides roughly in half. We tend to refer to the first half as being the book of signs because there are the 7 signs all listed in that first half of the book from chapters 1 through to 11. And then in the second half, from 12 through to 21, this gets called the book of glory, zeroing in on Jesus's glorious hour when he's lifted up on the cross. And so there's the gospel, and within it, you've got these three testimonies, three great testimonies, I'm calling them, just to give us a very, very quick overview and orientation. The first one comes at the end of the introduction, end of chapter 1. The next one comes at the end of the book of signs, chapter 11. And then the third one comes at the end of the book of glory, and really the end of the whole gospel in chapter 20. Okay, so we've got these three strategically placed testimonies. Let's just look at them briefly. The first one then comes at the end of chapter 1. We've got the prologue, the first 18 verses, but then the rest of chapter 1 is a set of testimonies about Jesus. John the Baptist and Peter's in there, Nathaniel. So you've got this set of people bearing witness to Jesus, but Nathaniel kind of gets the punchline. And so it's an intriguing story. Jesus saw Nathaniel coming toward him after Nathaniel had been called and told to come and meet Jesus. And Jesus makes some intriguing statements. He says, there's no deceit. And Nathaniel says, well, what are you talking about? How do you know me? And then Jesus says, hey, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. And that triggers in Nathaniel his response. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus said, well, I saw you under the fig tree, and you get so excited, you're going to see greater things. And then he makes this concluding statement about the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Amazing statement at the end. Those things that I've circled and connected there on the screen, they're all apparently connections back to Jacob and Jacob's experience. And so when Nathaniel was under the fig tree, I wonder if maybe he was thinking about Jacob or reading about Jacob or praying about Jacob. And when Jesus comes, Jesus says, here's an Israelite with no deceit in him. And it seemed to trigger a response. And then we get the confirmation of the ascending and descending, the ladder, the connection, the stairway between earth and heaven. But the stairway is the Son of Man. It's Jesus himself. It's a fascinating exchange that's going on. But what I want us to focus on is Nathaniel's testimony. Look at that. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Two very, very bold statements. Sometimes the King of Israel in the Old Testament was called the Son of God. There was that kind of language connection, but this feels even more elevated than just Old Testament royalty. Nathaniel seems to be recognizing something in Jesus that is certainly written in a way to get our attention. So let's go to the next one. The next testimony comes in chapter 11, and this is at the end of the book of signs. So we've had all 7 signs in the first half of the book, and the kind of culminating sign, if you like, is the raising of Lazarus. This is the pinnacle, at least within the book of signs, of the miracles that Jesus was doing. And so Jesus has come to Bethany, and Martha now is speaking with Jesus. Lord, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died, but I know that you can ask and God will give it to you. And Jesus said, your brother will rise again. And Martha says, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. She's thinking future. She's kind of almost resigned to the present sadness, but future ultimate hope. And then Jesus gives one of these great I am statements. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? And it seems like it's getting through to her. I don't think she fully realizes the significance of what's about to happen even. But somehow the belief within her is stirring, because her testimony there at the end, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world. You're the Christ, that is the Messiah, the anointed one, the one that has been anticipated throughout the Old Testament. You are the Son of God. And John's Gospel makes so much of Jesus being the Son, and the connection between God the Son and God the Father is just made, it's like it's being manifested for us on the page of John's Gospel. And there she is declaring, you're the Christ, you're the Son of God. Let's look at the third of these testimonies. At the end of the book of glory, end of the gospel, we've got this little passage here. It's a wonderful Easter Sunday passage. Now, Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So they said, we've seen the Lord. He said, unless I see and place my finger and place my hand, I will never believe. There's a statement. Unless I see it for myself, unless I get to touch, I am not going to believe. So 8 days later, the disciples were there again. Thomas was with them. Doors were closed or locked, and Jesus came and stood among them. And look what he says to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands, put out your hand, place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe. It's interesting that Jesus doesn't rebuke him. He doesn't say, you were out of order with what you said last week. He obviously knows, but he invites him to touch. He invites him to check it out. You know, that's just an important point for us to recognize, that Jesus doesn't want us to believe based on some kind of, just working it up, some kind of act of faith or something. Jesus is fine with us checking out the evidence. Look into it. Find out for yourself. Did he really rise from the dead? Here's Thomas, doubting Thomas as he's known, and Jesus is saying, go ahead, touch, see. And Thomas's response comes in verse 28. Jesus responds, have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. That's us. But let's just zero in on what he says. This is not just the climax of the second half of the gospel. This is the punchline for the whole of John's Gospel. My Lord, and look at this, my God. Thomas gets it. In this moment, he declares in no uncertain terms, Jesus is my God. What a testimony. After everything that's happened, that's become clear to him. And so we've got these three great testimonies all the way through John's Gospel. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Then you are the Christ, the Son of God. And finally, my Lord and my God. And like I said at the start, if you're making this stuff up, if you were coming up with a gospel, you'd probably put Peter, James, and John, put it in the mouths of the three most significant disciples. But no, we've got Nathaniel, we've got Martha, and we've got Thomas. And from these three mouths come these three great testimonies that just serve to point us to the wonder of who Jesus is. So I'd invite you to jump into John's Gospel, read it, enjoy it, see what it says to you about Jesus, and then see what your response is. What is your testimony about this Jesus?